Arlington Heights was about 4,800 when we were in high school. And the town pretty well is where it's developed now, was developed then. There were stores up and down Campbell Street, and there were stores on Dunton going north.
There was a flour mill in town and general merchandising stores and what have you. So
we went to the Freeze.
The Big Freeze.
The Big Freeze. Seaberg's drugstore was there.
the highway system had pretty well developed, and people would go to Elgin to shop and Oak Park and like that, but it was an excursion. It wasn't done routinely.
And then, of course, the railroad track was where it is, and they had this little building and they put the mail on an arm that stuck out, and the train would come through and grab the mail, and that's how they'd pick up the mail.
Into Chicago.
And that was interesting.
The 1940s were a time of increased mobility as cars and public transportation became necessary for travel between neighboring towns. Many students of Arlington High came from nearby towns such as Elk Grove and Mount Prospect.
We had kids come in from Wheeling and Elk Grove on buses. Elk Grove was nothing but farms.
The boundaries of the school district changed. We had people from as far away as what you call today Bensonville, and what are parts of Des Plaines, and almost all the way up to Warren Township.
One of these commuters was George Bussey, who traveled to school from Mount Prospect each day. George developed a close bond with Esther Karstens, whose father Walter was a prominent Arlington Heights businessman.
He was very active in Lions Club, and he was active in community. He was on a trustee in town and the village board. He was active in the church, and he was in the band and local undertaker. There were 2 undertakers, and we lived in the funeral home for some of that time.
First time I went over to pick up Esther for our date, there's a person at the door there that worked for her dad. And so I came in the front door, and there just happened to be 2 bodies laid out. So she said to me, which one would you like to see? And of course, I was a little high school kid, and so I said, Esther upstairs.
As the nation began to recover from the Depression, the town's own economy flourished, and other children of Arlington Heights business people attended Arlington. One was the son of a local dairy farmer.
My dad went to work at the age of 14, and he ended up working for Fessler Dairy for 2 years, and then he and his brother bought just the dairy. I have to give him credit for being a 7th grader and running his own business, coming through when times were tough, and he made a go of it, and I've been at it ever since. We had home delivery, and it was all in glass bottles, and we ran our own plant. We would go out to the farms in the area and pick up milk in the cans, but then the gas stations started selling milk, and more women went to work, and the industry just changed.
When young Lloyd Meyer wasn't tending to his father's dairy business, he could usually be found playing baseball and softball at Recreation Park. Rec Park was built in the 1930s as part of the government's WPA program, which provided unemployed people with paying jobs during the Depression.
I ended up playing softball at that field in the old northwest corner, and then I went on to play high school baseball at that field. Then I went on after a senior year. I played with the old Arlington Red Wings when we still had the grandstand up there, which seated about 1,000 people, and that was before TV. I kind of spent my whole life at Recreation Park.
By the mid-1940s, the Arlington homecoming was a firmly etched autumn tradition. In addition to the crowning of the first homecoming queen in 1946 and the first king in 1947, students also routinely participated in some lesser-known homecoming rituals.
Where the Olympic pool is now, they would build this huge bonfire the night before homecoming.
The big concern was that no one came and lit that fire before the event,
And this was huge. This was twice the height of this room.
There would probably be 800-900 people there. And then they had the annual snake dance. People would join hands and travel.
We'd go down Vale or one of the streets, or Walnut.
And they'd go out on Route 14, the Northwest Highway, stop a car, and all 900 people went through that car.
Then we'd go through some of the buildings, which we were not supposed to do.
We actually went through Seaberg's drugstore, and people would steal candy and take, little things, I'm sure.
My father had the Arlington Theater back in the 30s and early 40s, and my father would shut down the theater turn the lights up and let them come in.
Right in the front door, right out the back door. All these kids. Then the school or the police shut it down. That was it.
Well, they were rocking cars on the
Yeah.
highway. Some of the kids, the good kids, weren't.
Though World War II had been raging in Europe and Asia since 1939, the United States had remained militarily uninvolved, opting instead to impose trade embargoes on Germany and Japan. Life in small-town America seemed safe and secure until December 7th, 1941.
It was an unusual time because it was the wartime, and probably the most defining event in my life. I remember I went to a Sunday matinee at the theater with my best friend at that time from my class, and we went to the show late in the afternoon, and when we got out, everything was quiet, and the announcement had then been made, and that was a stunner for us. And it didn't sleep too well that night.
We'd go to the displays, to the theater. One of the fathers picked us up, and they announced that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. And man, everybody was, the kids and everybody were shook. And then the facts came out about it. But the thing that happened in our class is the older kids were drafted right out of the senior year, weren't they, Esther?
The Northwestern backed a special train into Arlington Heights because Arlington Heights had the regional draft office, and they filled the train with draftees. After that, there were no young men around.
And I can remember going and making bandages in the summer, a couple mornings a week for I guess was the Red Cross. We had sugar rationing, we had gas rationing.
Tire rationing.
We got meat stamps, and you'd have to, arrange how much meat you had and all this for the week.
And some of the people parked their cars outside and raised chickens in their garage in order to have something for the table. It wasn't that there was no money. It just was not a supply of things. So.
And then everybody had to black out at night. They had to pull down their shades. They had to limit their lighting. No lights outside. You used as little lighting as you could in the house because they were going to bomb us.
Well, and then there were people, if you had a person in the service, you had a little flag in your window with a star in it, and you knew how many people. Some families had 3 stars, and it meant they had 3 kids in the service.
And then you'd see some families with gold stars. That meant the boy died.
Like its citizens, Arlington Heights local businesses also contributed to the war effort. Arlington Seating Company was one such business.
I made school desks mostly. Until the war came along, they continued to do that, but they made huge torpedo crates. They would ship to a torpedo factory over on the North Shore, Amtorp or something like that, and then transshipped to wherever they went, and the Navy needed them. But that was the biggest thing that they did at that point. And there was a creamery package company that got into war work too. Their specialty was milk cans and things like that, and they served the agricultural community around here and elsewhere, for that matter.
When you heard the war was over, can you explain the feeling, your personal feelings of everyone around you?
Yeah, it was just celebration.
Well, we lived in the funeral home at the time, right on the highway, and the people were honking horns. Everybody's going to Chicago. Everybody's going to go to Chicago and celebrate.
Everybody was so pleased that it had ended.
Following the war, a new shop wing was built onto the east side of the school, and lights were added to the football field in 1947. High school was rapidly becoming a stabilizing institution for many 1940s adolescents.
Were people still needing to make a decision to even go to high school?
Before me, half a generation before me, high school was the exception. And by the time I came along, it was kind of the rule.
The teachers would come out to the games, and I can remember Miss Elfeld. I remember telling my parents that I could probably do better, but I was tired playing basketball. But, she was appreciative of the fact that I was playing, and I behaved. I had respect.
No real cliques or anything, just everybody, all the kids were just part of the group. It was a fun time.